If you could, if you have the next question, can you stand up and state your name and your hometown?
Senator, I'm Paul Dosher from Ware, New Hampshire.
How are you, Paul?
I'm good. I'm worried about the future we're going to leave to our children in the world today. As you know, because you'd mentioned climate change in your opening remarks, global warming is probably the most significant environmental challenge we face as a civilization. And the scientific consensus is that we face rising sea levels, increased flooding, increased drought, and major storms as a result of that.
Right.
We need to take aggressive, urgent action to control greenhouse gases so that we can solve this problem. So my question to you is, how aggressive will you be in promoting controls on greenhouse gases? And secondly, as part of that question, how will you explain to Americans that we're going to have to live with higher fuel prices and encouragements to be better at conserving energy, better than we've ever been before?
I hope I'm as articulate as you in describing it, because this is an urgent problem. And I've got a 9-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old daughter. And I want to bequeath to them a world that is as beautiful, as spectacular, as livable as the one that we inherited from our parents. So we're going to have to take aggressive steps. A couple of things that I've already proposed. Number one, we need to increase fuel efficiency standards on cars aggressively. We made progress yesterday in the United States Senate actually increasing fuel efficiency standards for the first time in 20 years. It wasn't as far as I would have liked to have seen it go. I had a bill that would have increased it 4% a year every year. This one just said we're going to get to 35 miles per gallon by the year 2020. It is progress, but it's not as far as we need to go. A national low-carbon fuel standard, something that I proposed at the University of New Hampshire, which basically says 10% of our fuel blend should be clean burning. And we can do that with a variety of mechanisms. The University of New Hampshire has actually done terrific work. They're running their buses on sunflower-derived fuels and biomass, and there are all kinds of creative solutions. So getting that into the mix and creating a market for it is going to be important. Then we're going to have to deal with power plants and industry. And we've got to set a cap on the amount of greenhouse gases that they can emit, and that cap has to go down each and every year. And what I've said is that our goal by 2050 should be to have a reduction of 80% of our greenhouse gases, which is the most aggressive proposal in the United States Senate right now, and that's been out there. In order for us to do that, you're right, we're going to have to pay slightly higher prices for electricity on the front end until the technology catches up. We're going to have to make some other sacrifices. But what you can do if you create what's called a cap-and-trade system is, even as you're capping the emissions that are allowable, you charge money for those who go over the cap. You also say to companies who emit even less than is required by law, you can trade those on an open market. And you create a marketplace for green technologies where people can make money by investing and engaging in entrepreneurial activity. And I'm absolutely confident that we can do that. By the way, that also generates money for the United States Treasury that we can use, billions of dollars that we can use to create an Apollo project, a Manhattan project for new energy, and train a whole new generation of engineers and scientists in the pursuit of new energy technologies. So everybody's going to have to make some sacrifices. Everybody's going to have to pitch in. But I'm confident that in the same way that we helped alleviate the problem of acid rain through a cap-and-trade system, we can do this in a quicker and a cheaper way than I think a lot of the naysayers are talking about right now.
So, Senator, with you as president, if you would expect us to make some compromises or make some tough decisions, would you also offer incentives to the American people as president?
Absolutely, and I've already done so. I've already introduced legislation that would give you a tax break for buying a plug-in hybrid car or buying a flexible fuel vehicle. And also, the government can serve as a good example by changing, for example, its fleet of cars to make them more fuel efficient, or changing the light bulbs in every government building, or providing tax incentives for people to get appliances that are more energy efficient. And one of the things that I'd like to do is to see the government work with businesses and the private sector and say, why don't we, for example, work to insulate all the old buildings in New Hampshire? And we can train young people who don't have jobs right now in that insulation process. They get a trade. We end up saving on energy, It's a win-win situation. There are all sorts of opportunities. What's required is a sense of urgency about this situation. And unfortunately, the last 6 years, we've had a state of denial in the White House that has been impeding us from taking this on in a direct and aggressive way.